I'm in Bristol, Virginia, the home of country music. I think Natalie would have liked it here. Here's a church, Vance and Randolph. The Constitution of the United States starts off with "We the people of the United States of America," in order to create a more perfect union. Check that out. Yeah. The United States democracy was a farce. See, in order for democracy to work, the people must be educated. Demokratia. People power. That is literally what democracy means. People power. The power of the people. That's pretty easy when you're on ship. Democracy. See, here's the thing. In order for democracy to work, the people have to be educated. It's not difficult to be educated on everything going on a ship. Y'all take a vote. Hey, are we going to go to Prince Edward's Island or are we going to go raid Tortuga? Well, everybody on the ship gets to speak, gets to have an opinion, gets to say their piece. Everybody. And then you vote. If you don't want to speak, you don't have to. If you feel somebody else said it better, by all means, allow their words to stand. But if they don't, you need to come forward. You need to speak out. And it is not only your right, but your duty to do so. Now, what we have is not a democracy. The people are lied to often. There are some people who are more entitled to the Constitution than others. And then there are people the Constitution does not apply to at all. The President of the United States does not have to abide by the Constitution. The police do not have to abide by the Constitution. Black people don't have the rights of the Constitution. They have even less rights if they're broke. Homeless people, the Constitution does not apply to them. It's supposed to. It's supposed to apply to all of us. Be you the President of the United States or a poor black man sleeping in a gutter. See, the President gets to sleep in a bed. And he's not victimized by the police for sleeping in that bed. But a man who has to sleep underneath a bridge will be victimized for it if he gets busted. Something that we all have to have. Sleep. And it's criminalized here in America. A lot of people are pissed off at me. Well, they felt that their constitutional rights were worth more than mine. From Shannon Alvarado to Natalie Bollinger to my dad. Fact is, I will continue speaking out until the day I die. Because somebody has to. In the Revolutionary War, men and women fought and died for my right to speak. Your right to speak. Your right to be heard. And mine as well. What we have now is a government that shits all over their sacrifices. Shits all over the things that they strove to do and to accomplish. And I'm supposed to throw that away because you're cowards? We have soldiers today who don't even know what the fuck the Constitution is about. Talking about how they're fighting for our rights. Fighting for rights that I don't even have. Sure, on paper I do. But in reality, if you're black, if you're broke, If your ancestors were brown, that piece of paper is just a piece of paper at that point. It doesn't mean shit unless you're willing to stand up for it. But when do you stand up for it? Do you stand up for it only when it's your group? Do you stand up for the Constitution only when it's white people being harassed? Or only when it's black people? Or only when it's immigrants? Or only when it's men? Or only when it's women? Why don't children have rights to that Constitution? Meanwhile, democratia, people power, has already been abolished. It was abolished before I was born. Then they use creative propaganda, like the Patriot Act. There is nothing patriotic about that. There is nothing patriotic about forcing the broke into servitude. There is nothing patriotic about that at all. Slavery. We pretend the Civil War was fought over slavery. And in part it was. See, many Southerners here say it was about states' rights. Well, it was actually only about one right. One. The right to own slaves. Founding fathers saw fit is to write the Constitution so that slavery could eventually be abolished. But because of a financial crisis, well, they had to make certain concessions. They had to appease certain people in order to make the nation strong enough to stand in order to become what it did. The problem is that before the end of the war, they enacted the 13th Amendment. This amendment to the Constitution made it so that anybody convicted of a crime could be used as slave labor. And of course, with the end of the war, all them black folks in the South who were made homeless, well, they started enacting harsh anti-homeless laws to make anybody who was homeless a criminal. But because it was illegal now to separate blacks and whites in such a fashion, they stopped putting the color in there. Now, it's not only legal for the state to force black people into servitude for the state, but anyone who's homeless. Chain gangs were created because of this. Because of the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, we enacted slavery that was worse than slavery. Many former slaves in the South said, we'd like to go back to slavery. How insane is that? And yes, we have many documents of former slaves learning to write and writing about how much worse it is as a free man. Well, that's only if you're a free black man. Women still didn't have rights. You can thank Wyoming for giving women the right to vote. But why did they do it? It was a publicity stunt to try to get their state's vote to mean more by increasing the population. The problem is that incarcerating those slaves and getting free labor out of them, I don't mean black slaves, I mean anyone who commits a crime or supposedly commits a crime. If they're broke, they don't get an honest day in court, and it's been like that since the beginning. It has been like that since the founding of the United States. Meanwhile, this democracy that we want to talk about so much, how these soldiers today are fighting for our democracy and for our rights and for our Constitution. You need to take a look at the Constitution and see how much of it we have left. Our First Amendment is shit and it's gone. Our Second Amendment is supposed to protect the First Amendment. It's shit and it's gone. Hello, sir. How many of those amendments do we still have left? Oh yes, we have the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution is the only one we have left. The First Amendment has been bastardized, as well as the Second Amendment, and those are the two that are the most important to me and should be the most important to you. Like I said, the Second Amendment was created to protect the First Amendment. That's your right to be heard, my right to be heard. Those two right there are the ones that establish that you have the same rights as a police officer and a judge. And yes, even the President of the United States. You may not have the same protections, but you have the same rights. If this is not the case, then you need to speak up. If you don't speak up, you're a coward, and you do not deserve those rights. If you can see a black man's rights violated and just walk on by like it's nothing, then you have stepped on your own rights. You have become the tyrant that you fear. Democratia, people power. Well, that only works if it's people. If it's just you, you are alone, you are easy to victimize. I encourage sin. That's safety in numbers. People power. The police come to take your neighbor's stuff because he doesn't have enough money. You have a rifle. Protect that man and his rights. If he's not allowed to speak in court on his own behalf, you grab your rifle and you protect his rights. If you are too much of a coward to defend his rights, you don't deserve them. You don't have the right to complain because you already threw it away. Unlike you cowards, I have not yet begun to fight. I have not thrown away my right to speak. I have not turned a blind eye to the harmful things done to others. And I will not. I will not keep my mouth shut when you violate a black man's rights. I will not turn a blind eye and keep my mouth shut when you violate a woman's rights. I will not. I don't care if you're gay. You still are a human being. I don't care if you're a woman, you're still a human being. I don't care if you're a man, you're still a human being. But equal rights, that's what the Constitution was written for. Do we have equal rights? No. We have a capitalist society where the public is not informed. They're stuffed full of propaganda. Whose propaganda? The people with the money. Only money grants you rights in these United States. Why? Because you don't stand together. Now, when you do stand together, it does make a little bit of difference. Of course, we had almost 1 million people march there in the East Coast a few years ago over a black man who was murdered. And that didn't make any difference, did it? Well, I'll tell you what. If them 1 million people fighting for that black man's rights had picked up rifles, I guarantee you it would have been a change immediately. These fuckers have no consequences for the evils that they do in our name, claiming that it's on our behalf. It's not. They're protecting their money. Or, in the case of the police, they're protecting the money of the rich. They don't give a fuck about you as a human being, and they never will. They are there, just like anyone else with a job, to get paid. They don't want to lose their jobs. They're not going to roll over on a bad officer because they will lose their jobs. Just like William Barr of Denver, Colorado. The Constitution of the United States is an extremely important document. Not just the Constitution, but also the Bill of Rights. How well do you know your rights? I focus on the first two for a reason. The Second Amendment is not a hunting law. A lot of people say we should take these guns away because, well, there's no longer a need to hunt. We can all go to the store. Ah, yes. Because you can't wipe your own ass. You should take away people's rights to defend themselves against a tyrannical government that does not represent them. Currently, over 90% of our population, over 90%, is in extreme debt. What's extreme debt? What do you consider extreme debt? Well, let's just consider that with no money, you have no rights. Most of you are living off of credit. Now imagine 200 years ago that didn't exist. 200 years ago, you could not have gotten a bank loan. Sorry, 250 years ago. You had to go to a lord in order to have that lord grant you. A lord. It's disgusting. And then when this country was first a country, when we won the war, yeah, we didn't have a solid currency. We didn't have a president. We had to fight hard for those things. But is it we? No, it's our ancestors. And we're shitting all over them by not standing up for what it is that is rightfully ours. They fought and died for a document that we wipe our asses with. Congratulations, you fucking cowards.